Hello and welcome to a fresh episode of Tech This Week, where we bring you up to speed with the week's most important development in the enterprise and emerging technology space in India. In today's episode, we'll talk about WhatsApp rolling out UPI, Happiest Minds' first quarterly results post a stellar IPO in September, Nolarity's tie-up with Google Cloud to offer speech analytics in India, and finally, the deals of the week. So joining me in this episode from Tech Circle's newsroom are Payal Ganguly, Supriya Roy, and Kunal Talgeri. Let's begin with the news which came in last evening. The much-awaited WhatsApp payment services in India has been given a green signal by NPCI. So what do you guys think it will mean for the whole UPI tussle in India?
Well, Shweta, we have to look at it in conjunction with the release which NPCI sent out minutes before, stating that it was capping the transaction volumes of UPI on third-party apps. With the announcement, I would say that NPCI clearly doesn't want a monopoly or a clear market leader when it comes to the entire UPI piece of payments. When we talk about also WhatsApp, it will be contending with market leaders such as PhonePe and Google Pay, which kind of account for almost 80% share of the market.
So the WhatsApp rollout, Payal, has been limited to just 20 million users for now, right?
The beauty of WhatsApp UPI would have been that, people would not have to move out of the chat app to, access payments, which would make it like a very strong contender for a piece of the UPI transaction pie.
Oh, off topic, but I noticed my transaction wasn't making through on UPI last night, and the release just came in on the 30% cap. I was thinking there's a link of sorts to it.
Well, the transactions failing could be a factor of, the investments which banks have kind of put a stop to when we talk about the entire UPI system. This has also, been reported that, increasingly most of the private banks have kind of stopped, their expenses on the UPI account. Looks like, NPCI today has called for a meeting with stakeholders to kind of discuss the finer points of capping the transaction volume. It's been in the works, honestly, for a couple of months. I think in around July, there was a steering committee meeting of NPCI where they discussed capping transaction volume.
Oh, so if the 30% cap, right, it's on a rollover basis for every previous 3 months, no? So if that's what happens every 3 months, won't the 30% cap on an average be like the same number of transactions for like every third party player? That's something I was still confused about.
No, Supriya, it comes into effect on January 1st, 2021. Also, the thing is that the incumbents or the existing players already, and there are around 21 of those third-party players, they would have a time period of almost 2 years to kind of phase it to bring down their volumes to 30% of the UPI transaction.
Okay, so looks like it will be in use for the rest of the year and towards 2021 when it will actually be implemented.
Right, true. To tell us more about NPCI's decision on capping the UPI transactions on the third-party apps as well as WhatsApp's launch, we have with us Mihir Gandhi of PwC India. Welcome to the show, Mihir.
To begin with, Mihir, could you tell us the exact thought process on capping the market share to 30% of the transactions to UPI for each of the third-party payment apps?
Sure. Thanks. Thank you so much for having me. I think it's a move in the right direction where NPCI is going to de-risk the overall business that one particular player controls. And from that perspective, I think having multiple players participating in the growing UPI ecosystem makes sense because the pie is big and the pie is growing. So from that perspective, it is a good that more players are coming in and each player has the opportunity to grow and become big in this space. Specifically for the 30% cap, I think it's more of a de-risking strategy where if one player is down or if one player cannot process all transactions, then you can quickly divert that and the system failure is not there on the overall ecosystem. From a customer perspective, the transaction and the experience should be very smooth, and that is something which NPCI is trying to look at by saying that, the experience and the convenience have to be offered and the experience of the customer should not be impacted.
Thanks for that, Mihir. Also, the release came on the same day as, NPCI kind of gave a go-ahead to WhatsApp Pay to go live in the country, but they've restricted it to 20 million users. So what is the thesis behind that?
So I think it's just about how the entire process has panned out and how it has been panned out. Initially, it was a pilot rollout which happened where only million users were allowed. And now what typically NPCI wants to do is just adopt a wait and watch approach where they will allow WhatsApp to go full-fledged and launch the UPI payments in India, but to a select set of customers, which will be again like a pilot base that it is going to look at. And once it is smooth and stable, then I think it will open it up to a different customer base, which is the 400, 500 million WhatsApp customers that use WhatsApp on a daily basis in India. So I think it's just a matter of time. It's a phased approach, and I think it makes sense because it's just monitoring how it scales up.
All right. So have you guys been following the US elections? So I think the outcome will definitely have an impact on the technology sector as well as the discussion on the visas for the IT workforce.
Yeah, now if we start talking about the election, another tangential direction of the conversation. But in terms of IT, localization efforts are, well underway for most of these IT exporters, right? Or at least that's what they say. Speaking of which, the latest entry into the IT stocks reported its first ever financials post its IPO, its blockbuster IPO in September. Kunal, what do you make of it? Even the analyst call today, right, was scheduled in the morning.
Yeah, it was. I think if this year it has been, the battle between TCS and Infosys has been the story of the year post-COVID. But if that wasn't the case, then I think Happiest Minds Technologies would have been the story of the year.
I think that must be because of Ashok Soota, no?
That's right. He's 77. He turned 78 in less than a week. So I think the fact that he managed, this is his second IPO in his career, and he had risen to vice chairman at Wipro in 1999. So he's had a stellar career. The danger was that Happiest Minds Technologies will become about Ashok Soota, which was a concern amongst investors before the IPO. The most striking thing in the second quarter results, which is the first time they are reporting their quarterly results, earnings results, is that Joseph Anantraju is now executive vice chairman, having built 50% of the revenue, the product engineering services business unit for Happiest Minds. And Venkatraman Narayan becomes the managing director of Happiest Minds. So while Mr. Soota is renowned for being a hands-on manager, the new appointments show that the company is serious about an independent management that will, despite having an executive chairman like Mr. Ashok Soota.
That sounds interesting, Kunal. Also, how did the company perform during the quarter? Could you give us some perspective on the numbers which you saw?
Yeah, I think it wasn't an extraordinary quarter for the company at all. Compared to a year ago, this quarter their revenue actually dipped. Their revenue has grown by about 5% compared to the previous quarter. The company has been emphasizing more on its profitability. Which I think is understandable. The danger that the mistake that analysts can make about Happiest Mind Technologies that they might compare this company with the big boys, which is TCS and Infosys. But I think the way to look at Happiest Minds Technologies is that as more and more companies invest in digital technologies, it's going to grow its share in that market that's emerging. So this will be something that's different from what different from what the advantage that TCS and Infosys have.
That sounds interesting, Kunal. Also, you did mention Infosys and TCS. So I was just curious to know that Happiest Mind said that 97% of their revenues come from digital. How does it measure up to the big boys of IT?
in absolute numbers, TCS and Infosys digital revenues will be much more than what Happiest Minds Technologies will be, making. TCS doesn't report its digital revenue separately, but if they were, then it would still in absolute numbers be much more. Infosys says that nearly 47% of its revenue is now digital, and Happiest Minds Technologies is saying that about 97% of its revenue is digital. As I said before, I don't think the comparison should be with. There are some disadvantages to being a young player in the current market. The large companies like TCS and Infosys find that they've cultivated relationships with large corporations globally. And even though they were for traditional IT deals, a lot of those conversations help them bag the digital side of the deals. That's an advantage that Happiest Minds will not have. So it will typically, their first conversations will begin with digital because that's their DNA. Which is why I feel you shouldn't be comparing Infosys and TCS with Happiest Minds. At the same time, I think there were some interesting numbers in this quarter's results. Their digital, if you look at their digital revenue, 41% of it came from digital infrastructure and cloud, and another 25% came from software as a service, SaaS. This was corroborated by, their third largest business is infrastructure management and security services. That grew 8.7%, over the previous quarter. So I think all in all, the signs look good. But I think somehow the company seems to be in a bit of a stealth mode. Because I think and that is probably because of COVID. For large companies to adapt with COVID, they've had their challenges. But for a very small company, a $100 million revenue company to also, that's why I think they're focusing more on profitability. They're cutting down their costs because of travel restrictions. They're renegotiating their rentals. The visa costs have come down. So all of this is showing that on the profits front, it's looking better for them. And they're focusing on high value sectors like travel. I'm sorry, not like travel. They're focusing on high value sectors like edutech and high tech. So 27% contribution to their revenue, edutech is their biggest sector compared to, say, BFSI, which is the largest for the big boys. So I think all in all, Happiest Minds is charting a whole new path by itself. This is the first time they're reporting their earnings. I don't think it's too early to say. I think it'll take about a year or 18 months before we know whether their strategy is working out or not.
Well, moving on to another notable development in the IT enterprise space was the partnership between Singapore-based cloud communications company Nolarity Communications and Google Cloud. So Nolarity will be using Google Cloud services to launch its programmable speech analytics platform in India.
I don't know about you guys, but I could really use a super efficient speech analysis tool for my daily conversations and with, of course, like set in stone privacy policies given that side of things. But
Supriya, you almost sound like Sheldon because from the Big Bang Theory, because he would have a problem with sentiment analysis. I thought you were pretty good at judging the vibes. But yeah, Shweta or Supriya, tell me more about this entire partnership and how is it going to help the companies which are a part of Nolarity.
Yeah, so it sounds super. It sounds enterprising. Going with the statement, at least, since it features this sentiment analysis, accurate transcription in about 125 languages, real-time analysis, and the like, which will provide users an improved Google Cloud-powered conversational service, the statement said from the company. Now, Indian companies will now be able to deploy this platform, which comprises of open APIs and a reserve of audio and video data recordings generated every day through phone calls, online meetings, call center calls, and voice searches. So generally speaking, it will automate a lot of workflow and processes. Now, speech analytics has an immense scope that way and, extent in terms of its applications.
Seems like another chapter in the growing cloud of cloud service providers.
Yep. In terms of the other digital transformations this week, Puma India picked customer relationship management giant Salesforce to enhance its online CX journey.
So if I remember right, Puma had previously deployed Salesforce Commerce Cloud, right, for its online and mobile shopping experience?
Yeah, you're right. So now with the coronavirus and social distancing situation still out there in play, Puma India plans to use the Salesforce Commerce Cloud to provide customers with an online digital experience that would match the in-store experience in its showrooms. Now, Puma said that the vast variety of customer data now available with it was in a better position to be able to understand what customers are buying and personalize the experience in accordance.
Got it. So on a related note, this week we also saw that, another retailer, which is the footwear brand Clarks, which is headquartered in UK, choosing to work with Find Retail Technologies for its omni-channel strategy. Because of COVID and high street, shopping malls as well as stores being closed, or as well as seeing very little footfalls from people, I think a lot of retail brands are charting their, digital transformation journey, partnering with companies which can provide them a channel for both selling to their own online stores as well as plugging into third-party e-commerce platforms. In this case, Clark already sells on Myntra, and I think, according to the statement from the company, will help it plug the inventory as well as sales and demand, pieces together.
And moving on to the funding deals of the week, payments platform MobiKwik raised a Series E round of $5.5 million from Hindustan Media Ventures, which the company plans to use for its IPO prepping, which it is targeting by the end of 2021. And earlier this week, logistics startup Rivigo raised $11 million from returning investor Elevation Capital.
Health tech startup DocSap raised $8 million, led by Javco Asia Tech Fund and Team Fund, and Delhi-based Lena AI, which offers an artificial intelligence-backed platform for human resources management, raised about $8 million in a Series A round of funding.
With that, it's a wrap on this episode of Tech This Week. Do stay tuned in and logged on to techcircle.in for more interesting news and updates. Thank you very much for listening.